And hello, welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Tim Gordon in for Stephanie Domerat today. Over the last year, we have watched the artificial intelligence industry grow to become a common part of our everyday lives. As the technology continues to improve, it finds its way into sales, medicine, and even government. In February, Governor Tina Kotek signed Executive Order 2326, which established Oregon's Artificial Intelligence Advisory Council, beginning the task of developing a plan to integrate AI into Oregon's government functions. This tech-forward approach comes as concerns around data privacy are rising, particularly when it comes to artificial intelligence. Well, joining us to explain how the state is navigating those concerns is Oregon's first Chief Privacy Officer and AI strategist, Nick Blosser. Nick was appointed to this first-of-its-kind position back in July. Previously, Nick served as VP of Public Affairs at Portland General Electric. Prior to joining PGE, Nick held positions in the White House under former President Joe Biden and was former Governor Kate Brown's Chief of Staff. Nick Blosser, thanks so much for joining us today on Straight Talk.
Pleased to be here.
Really appreciate it. Well, let's get right to it with the questions, and we'll start out with this. What's the ultimate goal of this push to integrate AI into state government?
Yeah, I think there's multiple goals, and the AI Advisory Council that Governor Kotek appointed issued a report in February that had a number of guiding principles, and a few of them were accountability, trust, transparency. So one of the goals that I have is now trying to figure out how to enable state government using AI aligned with those principles.
Yep. Tell me more about that. Tell me about the details of your position and what you will be doing.
Yeah, so I've only been there a couple months, but I've been spending time meeting with both technical and business agency leaders across state government, from the Housing Bureau to the Parks Department to the Employment Department, trying to understand how they use AI and really thinking about with them how they might be able to then use it responsibly and protect people's data at the same time.
You know, that's actually my next question, was to ask, what are those state agencies telling you? How specifically do they hope to use AI?
Yeah, what I've sort of started with is trying to get them to focus on what we call use cases or uses of AI that are internally focused, so that really support employees and don't use restricted or confidential data, so they can sort of get their feet wet and learn the technology. And then later on, we'll be looking at more sophisticated uses that might creep into that territory, but we have to develop a lot more rules and guardrails before that happens.
Sure, and you know well as anyone that technology just keeps growing. So how do you keep up with that learning process when it's always continuing to grow?
It's a good question. I spend a lot of time reading and listening. I actually have AI summarize the latest news for me on AI so I can keep up. I have counterparts in maybe 20 other states, so we communicate about sort of what you're doing and how they're solving things. But it's a transformative technology. It's moving faster than really any technology I've ever seen. So it's hard to keep up, I'll say.
Yeah. Any specific tools at this point that you've pinpointed that you're going to be using?
Yes. So the state uses Microsoft Copilot, which is a great chat tool, and actually every state employee has access to that tool right now, which many states don't even have that. So we're sort of ahead of the game in allowing every employee to have a safe tool that is secure, that they can kind of begin to use it for productivity purposes. And then there's more sophisticated Microsoft tools and other tools that we have access to too.
Well, as Chief Privacy Officer, what are you thinking about when you hear agencies talk about how they want to implement this and specific employees using it? What are your kind of hopes for it and also your concerns?
Yeah, I think my hopes right now are really to get everyone exposed to the technology and really understand where they want to go. I'm encouraging agency leaders to think about AI adoption plans for each agency, because you've got a 5,000 employee Oregon Health Authority responsible for Medicaid, and then you've got a much smaller board or commission that only has 10 employees. So they're going to have different ways they use this technology. But at the end of the day, for the next year, I'm really focused on tools that really help employees do their jobs more efficiently so they can repurpose that time to other things.
The efficiencies are already pretty amazing, how it can cut down on kind of the busy work, I guess.
Yeah, and let me give you a great example. So the Oregon Health Authority and the Department of Human Services administer the Medicaid and SNAP programs, which are basically food vouchers and healthcare.
Sure.
And they have about 1,000 employees at the state that do this eligibility work to determine if people are eligible. The department has built an internal chatbot that has access to the 1,000 pages of policy about eligibility for these programs, so that when someone calls, that employee has a question, they can ask the chatbot and it'll give them a very quick and accurate answer with the citation. And what I'm excited about is that's really great. If you've been an employee there for 20 years, you probably know the answers. But if you're a new employee, it really helps you learn that much more quickly. And actually the department won an award for this a couple weeks ago, and it's going along great. So that's the kind of case we're looking at right now.
Interesting, yeah, for sure. We know a study by Stanford University published in October found that leading AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic are harvesting users' interactions with their AI models to continue training them, sometimes without an option for users to opt out. How concerned are you about these models the state chooses doing the same thing?
I'm not concerned about the models the state uses, because with our platform with Microsoft, very specifically cannot train on any interactions and any user data. Now, some agencies want to look at using additional tools, and that's one of our criteria that we've developed, is that the models cannot train on data that we would input.
Yeah, interesting that right now it's Microsoft, but there are so many options. Do you foresee that you will be bringing in some other tools?
Yes, well, it gets complicated because I say Microsoft, but even within Microsoft, there's access to Anthropic.
Okay.
That just got announced last week, in fact, and OpenAI. So it is changing so quickly, but yes, the assumption is we'll be able to have access, but that's one of the criteria, is no training on state data.
Great. And I know you're fairly new into the job, but obviously up on it. But have you figured out yet how the state's going to really prevent Oregonians' data from being used to train AI models like this?
Well, when Oregonians give data to state agencies, we will have we do have very detailed criteria that prohibit that. Now, what we need to do over time is develop more robust monitoring and testing to make sure that criteria is being enforced. So I know we're all aiming in the right direction with the goal, and it's just developing the system to ensure that that's the case.
Right, because there certainly is fear out there from everyone, really, that this thing is going to kind of take over and take my personal information and use it in a way that's not going to be good for me.
Yeah, I think Oregonians should feel pretty safe right now with how we're operating. I think once we develop clearer guidelines for the more sophisticated cases, that's where then we need to have a broader conversation, I think, and we need to be really transparent to earn the trust of Oregonians to be able to do those more complicated tasks.
So a Gallup poll from September shows that 72%, nearly 3 out of 4 Americans, would prefer independent experts or organizations evaluate and test AI products before they're widely used. How's Oregon going to go about doing that, choosing? Are you going to use independent organizations to help?
It's a good question. I've been thinking about that, and it's sort of why we're really crawling before we walk, and we're going to walk before we run. So right now we're in the crawl phase. As I've sort of joked, you're not going to learn how to swim by staring at the pool. So I'm telling people to jump in the pool, but it's a really shallow pool right now. So we're just learning, and we're not using restricted data. We're focusing on employees. I think then we're going to have the bigger conversation, but I do have a little time to figure out about, do we need an independent auditor, how to really verify and give people comfort.
Sure, and speaking of timelines, again, it's just been since the summer that you're in this position, but obviously you have a lot of experience in the area. What's the timeline for kind of seeing things go forward?
Well, this is a good question. Every month goes by, I try to incrementally add more guidelines and policies that people can follow. I would say by the first quarter of next year, we'll have a pretty clear roadmap for next year. But this is unlike anything I've seen in the sense that typically state government operates on a biennial basis. We do 2-year plans, multi-year plans. This is moving so quickly, we have to operate differently.
Sure.
And so I'm kind of looking at 6-month plans at a time, because you then, after 6 months, what you could do with AI, what you can do today, you couldn't do 6 months ago.
Right.
And what you'll be able to do in 6 months, you can't do today. So that's why we sort of need to take a little bit more of a stair-step approach to it.
Yep. You've worked in the White House for President Biden. You're chief of staff for Governor Brown. So you certainly know that working in the state government, it is slower than that. So it must be a challenge then in some ways. How are you finding you're fitting in to the state government machine?
It's it's been really wonderful, honestly. A little bit of a surprise how great it's been. I think maybe it's because I do know how the levers work. I can sort of navigate and I can talk to the technical leaders and the business leaders and the legislative leaders and really try to figure out and really give them, I would say, the information they need so that they know kind of where I'm headed. I can get their feedback and we can progress like that. It's not a partisan issue right now, which I'm really happy about.
Sure.
Everyone kind of cares about it. Everyone concerned about it. So am I.
Yeah, we're all on board.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you well in your endeavor. I think Oregonians are counting on it, counting on you and your team. Nick Blosser, Oregon's first Chief Privacy Officer and AI Strategist. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
You bet.